The U.S. Joining us now is Congressman John Katko of New York, one of the Republicans who is requesting the briefing. Congressman Katko, why at this point do you believe that the FBI director should come to Congress and brief you on everything that the FBI knows about SWALWELL's connections to this alleged Chinese spy, the woman who's colloquially known as Feng Feng?
Well, listen, it's incumbent upon all of us who deal with sensitive and classified information on a regular basis to make sure that people who have access to that information are not tainted. Now, that's all we're asking to do is get a briefing so that we can make a determination whether there's a problem. And that's what we're looking for with respect to that letter to the FBI on Mr. Swalwell. But I'm very, very concerned with what's going on with respect to the Olympics in Beijing next year, considering the fact that they're engaged in massive human rights violations, including genocide on a large scale.
Yeah, let me ask you about the letter that you sent to the Biden administration, to the president himself, about the upcoming Beijing Olympics. You wrote, quote, "The actions taken by the Chinese Communist Party are antithetical to the values of both the United States and its allies around the world. Participation in an Olympics held in a country who has openly committed genocide not only undermines those shared values, but casts a shadow on the promise for all those who seek free and just societies." What signal would U.S. participation in the 2022 Olympics send?
I think capitulation or rationalization of their conduct, and they are literally gathering up millions, over 1 million people, maybe as many as 3 million ethnic Muslims, primarily Uyghurs, in concentration camps, and they are systematically engaging in genocide with them, as defined by the United Nations. President Biden, when he was on the campaign trail, acknowledged it. He hasn't since he's been in office, but the Canadian government just voted unanimously yesterday to try and get the Olympics moved to another venue for next year, and that's all I'm asking. I'm not saying we prevent the athletes from competing. I want them to compete, but I don't want them to compete in a country that's engaged in genocide. It's an absolutely wrong signal to send to people around the world, and I think it's high time we stand up to China and its tactics and say enough is enough. And I'm asking the president to lead.
Yeah, Congressman Katko, I wanted to ask you about Canada, and not just because I grew up there, but because the Canadian Parliament did take a vote in which it unanimously agreed that Beijing should be stripped of the Olympics. President Biden, the fellow across the street from us here, where our studio is, has pledged that the United States is going to lead in the area of foreign policy, but already we're behind our neighbors to the north in this.
That's exactly right. Why are we following the lead of Canada? We're the greatest country in the free world, and we're supposed to be the beacon and bastion of democracy and freedom. And why are we following the lead of other countries? It's time for the president to lead here and say, come on, we cannot abide by this. This isn't the right thing to do. And I spend my fair share of time in Canada playing hockey too, so that's all right with me.
It was a long time ago now. It was 40 years ago, but the United States did boycott the Moscow Games in 1980 because of Russia's I guess back then it was the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. The historical precedent to stand up for human rights is there, so why not exercise it this time around?
No, John, that's a great question, and I would argue this is far more serious. I mean, they are literally committing genocide, and we're talking about having games there. And listen, we have plenty of time if the president acts swiftly and he uses his authority as a leader of the free world to move the Olympics to a more friendly venue. So we're not rewarding not just bad behavior, but a ghastly behavior. And as far as Homeland Security goes, we have products that are on a list now that we have to maybe quarantine and stop being imported in the United States because they're engaged in slave labor in these concentration camps and also engaged in genocide. So what are we doing? There's time to act. We can move it to a more friendly location. The athletes can still play, but I think time is of the essence, and let's get it done and let's move to another location.
Well, let us know if you get an answer to your letter, would you?
I sure will.
Appreciate it. Congressman John Katko, a fellow hockey player, good to talk to you today. We'll see you again soon.